All right. Good to catch up again. Today is going to be dedicated a little bit more to the creation of the characters. So what we've done so far, we looked into sort of the overview of Unreal, the potential of that sort of virtual production. The last session was a bit more dedicated to import, export. We even rendered a quick video from the sequencer, and including also different ways of dealing with asset meshes and texturing as well. So that's where we left off, well, the other day. And what I've prepared today, again, is a little bit more dedicated to characters. Okay, so we can tell stories in many different ways with many different type of characters. As you know, my sort of ultimate goal and belief is that sooner or later this virtual production is going to take over live action. So we're not there quite yet, but naturally the sort of character I'm kind of interested in are human beings, virtual characters. So incidentally, I don't have it set up today, but I've been again, from one session to another, the things change. So I've been granted access to the MetaHuman online editor, but at the moment they only let you access for 1 single hour. So if you start 1 hour, then that's and not at any time. So they're really, really cautious, very gradual. So that's why I can't share that with you quite yet. So that means I'm going to go back to my preferred tool so far, which is iClone and Character Creator. So the company behind these two software is called Realusion. I think they are based in Taiwan. I spoke with one of those people at some point, and they've been doing a pretty serious kind of work, a little bit behind the scene in a way. I suspect originally, again, their main target was game, and then just like Unreal, they came to realize that there was something a little bit beyond that, probably a wider market, wider potential. So two different software from the same company, and they are working together and in hand. And even more so because obviously it's made by the same company, they communicate. So these two platform communicate pretty well, and you have also integration with Unreal. So this is the whole workflow I'm going to go through. So we have Character Creator right now, which is basically the landing interface workspace with the character. So when you open Character Creator for the first time, this is what you see. And then you have the second platform, which is iClone, for everything animation from so you have, immediately it's quite clear, you have a timeline there at the bottom, and you can see also this tab which is called Unreal Live Link, so you can transfer your characters to Unreal. Further integration as well with tools like as simple as Photoshop, so you can send the texture to Photoshop, and you can also use Substance. So I don't have the Substance workflow up and running right now, but I can definitely show you how you could deal with Photoshop as well. Must be said that Character Creator and iClone are actually paying platform. Okay, so it's fairly modular. So it can be quite expensive as well. I think that if you really want the whole package, we're talking £5,000 or so. But they're doing very nice integration. There is another add-on which is part of the same um, of the same constellation of software, if you wish, which is called the 3D Exchange as well from Realusion. And this is like, you can't make it more of a bridge than that. It's sort of crossroad between many different type of 3D and meshes and animation. So it's quite a brilliant integration and bridge. Actually, it turns out that Realusion received a mega grant from Epic Game so for their progress and development. So that's that. Where do we start? Well, in fact, we're going to start a little bit elsewhere. I just wanted also to point out the fact that all my software are pretty much running in the background. So the stuff that I've done the other day with you guys, I still haven't made any progress with my texturing. It's still very blue inside, as you can say. I didn't spend much time in front of the computer this weekend, I must confess. Pubs are reopened somewhat, so here you go. A bit of distraction. But it's important to point out that all these software are really, again, open and running in the background because that's how they can dialogue. They can talk to one another. Okay, so that's how it works. And so the one platform I'm going to start with, usually when I use that software, it's because I have my motion capture suit completely strapped on. So I don't have that today. There are two reasons for that. The first reason is that I live in a studio flat, so it's not really conducive of much important motion capture. I kind of tend to hit the walls pretty quickly. And the other factor, again, is because I really wanted to go through a lot of things with you, more to do with how we can play with those files back and forth, and also what we can do with the creation of the characters themselves. Okay, so it somehow can start from this point. So I have a pre-recorded mocap there, something I've done with a friend about a month ago now. So you see, we're dealing with sort of a very simple 3D sort of humanoid in a way. You see a little bit the action, so it's quite. I think the action is quite interesting as well. That's why I use this. The character's walking and suddenly being stopped by something. Okay, and what I like about that scenario, so my friend was directing, is in fact, this was the animation I provided because I have the suit and the system for my friend to actually complete his fellowship. Okay, so this is the film that he made out of that. So the fellowship is indeed this training provided and support. I think it may include some financial support by Epic Game, the maker of Unreal, to VFX artists. So I mentioned that previously, and Dom actually has made that film, which is called Time to Dive, and they have only 5 weeks, very intense, and the point is to really make use of all the stuff that they learned during these 5 weeks. So just for you to understand a little bit better where that action takes place. So I think it's kind of quite typical of what Dom is doing as a filmmaker as well, of a sort of slightly surreal kind of things, and it's a bit of humor as well. You see, she character drives to a place where you have that neon that says "Time to Dive," and in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the forest, and she doesn't really understand what's going on, and in fact, she soon realized that she is trapped into a invisible sort of cage. Check this out. And here it begins. And then I think it's very clever as well, because that's only when the reflection on the glass is being revealed as well. So this is what we've done. This is why we've created that animation. And I've, again, only been involved that very day when we created that animation there. Okay, so I'll go back to that a little bit later, because what we're going to do, I keep an eye on the time because I really have a lot of things to share with you, but I'll try to make all that stuff fit. I'll start with the creation of a character, so character creator. I will then send that to iClone with a timeline. I will then import the animation created in Xsense. So Xsense, again, is that platform provided and which comes along the motion capture suit. So it's a company based in the Netherlands that I showed you the other day, their demo. And then from there, bring the animation inside iClone, and send everything to that scene in Unreal. So it sounds perhaps a little bit meandering, but bear in mind that no single tool is perfect. You know what I mean? No. Each of these tools is really doing a specific things. Okay, so as they say, no man is an island. Well, you need all these tools to work together to eventually do what you need. To give it a bit of context as well, as you know, I'm not a 3D guy by trade or training, so I really hunt. That's the right word. I really on the lookout and seek all the possible shortcuts, sort of ways to prevent me to have to get my hands dirty in 3D, in too heavy, 3D kind of thing. So this is great because with a tool like Character Creator, you can do just that. It's based on library. So on the left, you see a lot of um, resources, for instance. So you have naturally characters, which is what I'm going to use right now. That's funny. They've done an update again. Clearly, since the morning, things are going really, really, really fast. It's kind of quite crazy. So you choose really what you want from these assets. Okay, so let's have a look inside. I could have, why not this character? So I'll just let it. You'll see again throughout the session, there will be a few of those process. So it's not absolutely instant. But you can choose your avatar. So yeah, just quickly. Yeah, let's save it there. There we go. So it's updating, replacing with one of those characters there. Okay, so it's based on morphs and sliders, right? So you have all these sliders on the right, and you'll be able to access a lot of the feature. I can show you a little bit what can be done there. What's quite impressive is that straight away the quality of these avatar. So at the moment, everybody's talking about the meta-human of Epic Game Unreal, and they're clearly doing a great job in terms of animation and rigging. I mean, the face of the meta-human, the number of bones behind the face is enormous. Is really, and apparently I got that from a friend of mine, an expert, an animator, who said like it's beautifully made behind the scene, those meta-human, but once again, Character Creator was kind of there before, and I think in the animation they still have to do some progress. But in terms of shading and the texture, you have these wrinkles, you have the skin imperfections. It's very, very detailed, very complex. You can actually change a lot of the parameters. So here, right there, you have these so-called sliders, and it's huge. This is what you pay for, really, and this is why the price can be a little bit modular, because you can have access to extended range of sliders. So say if I'm now playing with the eyes, and you can control a huge amount of detail that frankly I had never truly paid attention to, from the broadest sort of placement like this one to things a little bit more subtle at time, for instance. So say see the extension of the eyes. I don't even know the terminology of each of those details. The eye outer width. So you could also, that's somewhat, I suppose, the risk or the fun, depends how you look at it, create impossible humans. I mean, non-realistic or even a little bit scary, creepy human. You know what I mean? But really, truly, the amount of detail is quite extensive. I've also learned through the process and through further reading as well, is that in reality, most of us are not symmetrical at all. We human being, real human, are not at all symmetrical. So I suppose the trick and the key for a successful uh, digital human is precisely that, is to create imperfection, asymmetry. And they really understood that very well in the character creator software, because a lot of features are kind of left and right independent. So that's quite good. Just playing around a little bit. You really have to keep track also, I think, of what you're doing. Save a lot of version as well, because you can. It's a bit of a rabbit hole as well. You can find yourself a little bit lost at some point, and try many combination. They have an interesting feature as well, which is called the headshot. I'm not massively fan of that. So basically, you provide a picture, and it's going to try and come up with a ready-made solution. As frequently, ready-made solution are just that. They they either don't go far enough, or actually just are completely over the top and don't look natural at all. So I think it's interesting to note, because that's probably also somewhat a direction of travel. If you've seen films like Benjamin Button with Brad Pitt, you may have seen the behind the scene where those guys had to do, well, Brad Pitt namely, had to be a scan in 3D in all possible lighting and stuff. Well, this is kind of the idea, but in a super simplistic version, made available for layman like myself. So I keep like tweaking things around a little bit, and sometimes very subtle. You really have to pay attention to what's going on. But that's the beauty of the software: is the subtlety, is the nuance, is the things that you can bring in even so slightly. And she already somewhat looks quite different, compared to previously. As always, I think nuance is the essence, or whatever that aphorism is. It's the time is the essence, but I think it's the nuance is the essence in that case. So you can do like a sort of uh, magazine ridiculous Kardashian kind of sort of smile, and so on and so on. And naturally, when it comes also to the detail, it's about the color, the skin texture, the imperfection. So you can reach all these. So if I select the head, for instance, right there, you can change parameters such as well, the classic passes, really, stuff like uh, let me try to display that, the roughness, for instance, and you have also the micro normal or micro normal, whether you call it. So let's try to materialize that for you. Okay, matte and more sort of wet, sweaty kind of look. Okay, alongside that, so independent control for the nose there, for instance, and alongside that, you have also those detail, the normal and specular. So see that specular over there, and subsurface scattering, which is also essential for sort of something photorealistic, which is subsurface scattering. So some of you may already know what I'm talking about, which is the way light interact when it goes through translucent object or material. So typically the ears there. And I find that really absolutely brilliant, because it feels as if indeed, well, it's what happened when with real human. It's if you zoom in, you can see also the small details, the the texture of the skin as well. I can smooth the mesh a little bit there, because I thought it was a little bit triangular. Um, So another one. Let me try to perhaps address ambient occlusion. I mean, ambient occlusion is it's what it is, but here it's for inside the mouth, the nostril as well. So if I were to increase this a little bit, you see that it darkens naturally. So you have some control, of course, on the overall shading. That's the one I wanted to look into as well. So you see you have like separate local control and micro normal. I don't know how you pronounce that. Micro normal, something like that. So this really requires us to zoom in like at skin level. And that's great. That's really beautiful because as a filmmaker, for me, immediately at the back of my mind is just like, wow, okay, so then I'll be able to do like close up, like, you know, amazing close up like that, the one that you would not even dare doing on on an actress, you know. They would prevent you to do so. I'm not even really joking. Um, you know, I knew of a DOP who worked on the hours with Meryl Streep, and there was like huge constraint with regard to what they could shoot and the lens they could use, and so on. So with digital human, they usually don't really complain, so that's convenient. That's very convenient. So I'm going to probably decrease a little bit all that, and I could just keep it as it is. Maybe bring down the specular. Why not? Okay. So I think she needs hair a bit. She's not complaining, but I can sense that, you know, now that the hairdresser reopened, there's absolutely no justification for no hair. Some of the very beautiful stuff they do as well, and that's pretty recent. You see on the left, they create these sort of small details. So the things that I have yet to try fully, I mean, I've done a few tests round trip with Unreal with regard to collision and weight and simulation of hair, you know, so that when you move your head and stuff, the hair move a little bit accordingly. It kind of depends the nature of the hair. I mean, in terms of mesh, whether you're talking of actually um, genuine hair strand, or actually what you see right now, which is not quite that. It's actually sort of bands of mesh which have been textured. So this individual hair do not exist as such. They are actually textured mesh. Okay, but she looks a little bit yeah, better, I think. So you can also quite easily position or reposition, which you can end up doing silly stuff like that. But it's well implemented in the sense that it's quite resilient. It let you do quite a lot of stupid things, and it would also adapt a little bit. Okay, so that's in that respect really brilliant. Again, if you don't know how to use ZBrush or Maya or that sort of things, you know, it's pretty plug and play. If you know of DAZ, which is another company who create a sort of huge library of assets, well, you can actually import stuff from DAZ. I don't have it here today. I mean, I have it on a computer, but that would be too many things to show you. So for now, that's that. Something I love as well is being able to send the texture directly to Photoshop. So you have to have Photoshop open in the background as often. And then here is the texture of the face over there. Okay, so all you need to do is to send the texture to Photoshop indeed. So here it is. Okay, so I have a few layers. So if you know Photoshop, you know the sort of stuff that you can do. I'm going to probably apply. I don't know. I don't have like crazy preset. I think I'm. She's not going to look particularly good after that process. Um, Export. Make it a quick PNG in there. Okay. Call it paint. There we go. So now back in here, I could actually load. So um, bring the stuff that I've just made at the minute. So going back to desktop demo, here it is. So you see that it would immediately materialize on the other side. I think that's quite cool, actually. It's very simplistic, but that's quite cool. Let's keep it like that. Why not? At least we can track our character. We can make sense um, of where she's going. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to send her. Well, we can give her a few garments being dressed. Because it's mid-April, but it's still a bit chilly out there. So again, the clothes there. Let's go for something simple, and there you go. So I select among the library of clothes, which once again can be augmented by through external assets, right? So I refer to DAS. That's a great source for that. And what about this one? Why not? Sometimes it will require a few adjustments because it's not one size fit all. Because I haven't mentioned that you can naturally change the body dimension, at will. Okay, so as I said, it's completely endless. Um, all these sliders naturally include. Um, so I went straight into the detail, but say with the waist there, you could change some of the key factors. So everything is completely customizable. And you see that the clothes, funny enough, kind of follow suit, which is really, really brilliant, right? So yeah, so it's a lot of sliders and morphs as they call it, right? So dressed, makeup, hair, well, perfect. Maybe I can adjust slightly the weight. So what I mean is not the weight of my character, is the skin weight, meaning that it's going to update the fitting, how that fits. Maybe if I check dress. So there is a manual option for that, but this is the automated one, which in most cases does work, in fairness. So there's not really much to change. But here, for instance, as well, you see that this is kind of going through as well. So you could access the entire mesh, edit the mesh, um, and 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 update the respective sort of weight and priorities from one mesh against the other, stuff like that, for instance. So again, I'm not going to do that right now because I really want to ensure we run through the animation and back to Unreal. So this is it. We have our character, dressed, makeup, hair, as I said. I'm going to send that character to iClone. So that takes really one click, iClone. Since iClone is already open in the background, so here it is. Now I switch to iClone and it's effectively loading the data, the character, and everything. So you would expect that obviously from a set of characters which are effectively from the same company. So here she is. Um, iClone compared to character creator, as I said, is really for the animation. So if you do want to do facial capture, or indeed edit the animation in the timeline over there, or combine those, you can have also direct link from Xsense. The reason why I don't usually employ direct link is because, in fact, the files from the Xsense software are better when processed. So you capture the motion capture data, then you process the files, and it can be quite lengthy. So I do that on my desktop computer. Usually when I'm on session mocap, I use my laptop, as Iliana knows, because it's just more portable and it can go around and everywhere. But once I go back home, I just transfer the file, process them, and then use them, ingest them into iClone, because the live stream is frequently very noisy, be it for facial capture or body capture. as well. So a little bit of treatment and editing. That is my favorite workflow. Again, I think the only justification for live link, irrespective of the software and the intention, is for me, it's really like shows, like live shows or broadcast, live broadcast, that sort of stuff. Other than that, you're much better off to have a sort of more step by step, a little bit more precise approach. Okay, so here we are. I think she's really sweating a bit too much, but we'll be able to change that once in a reel as well, which is why I like the process. There is that these are not really, this is not her final look at all. Okay, now the paint is kind of embedded in the texture now, so it's kind of a bit too late to go back, but yeah, it's I can still change the sort of specular wetness, roughness, metallic, and all that sort of things. Okay, so time to bring in the animation. So the animation is this one. I've exported it, I've processed it already, so we save a little bit of time as well. But I can't, unfortunately, bring that in iClone straight away. I will need, for the time being, this software, which is the 3D Exchange. It is also part of the Unreal suite, so it's fine. But I need to actually set up properly the skeleton. So these data, which are going to appear there, so this is a very, very basic skeleton. It's what will drive the mesh, okay, eventually. So very, very basic setup there. I've created also at some point a profile originally from a Maya setup. I still have to work a little bit on that to make sure that really everything kind of look okay, and especially for the hands, because I eventually acquired the mocap gloves, and these required a little bit of tweaking here and there, because I ended up having like sort of fingers going the other way around, and sort of very unrealistic and by the look of it, quite painful. So I'm going to load that profile I've created. Here we go. And then, so the animation is already there. Okay, so in here, it's just that now I'm going to make it available to iClone. All right. So let me check. This is the animation there. Yeah. So it went a little bit elsewhere, but here it is. Here it is. Here it is. So you see that she's doing that action. So, but this time now, the animation is in that sort of interface, that bridge, which is 3D Exchange. So what I need to do is to send that animation now to iClone. And I need also to ensure that our character is selected. Okay, so all these software do dialogue, but there are a few prerequisites, which is the hardest part for me, because that means I have to remember all these things. And I apply that to iClone, and I go to iClone, and here it is. Now I have the animation. So it is not real time. There is it's basically playback at the moment. Yeah, below 24 frames per second. Slightly below. It's not bad, but you can tell that there is a sort of slight slow motion ish. So she bumped into that glass. We had quite a bit of fun when we shot, or I don't know what's the terminology for mocap, when we recorded captured the mocap, because obviously we played with the walls, so, and that sort of stuff to have like actual constraint, and you can sense that the actress was actually physically constrained. She really bumps into stuff. She really applies, the palm of her hand really sort of applies against something, a resistance, right? So that's kind of I find quite key for the realism. Okay, it's not something that you would obviously fake. So here we are. Okay, I'm going to send that now to Unreal. So we're nearly there in our trip. There is the scene over there. And then we're going to bring, so I've done it already. I've prepared that a little bit. So there's already the Unreal folder over there. I don't know if, I hope this is going to probably save a little bit of time. We'll see. So there are two things there. One is to send the character to Unreal, and the other one is to send the animation. You could kind of do that in one go, but the reality is that you're going to have many takes of your mocap and many different shots and sequences for the same character. So you don't necessarily want to re-import the same character over and over and over, especially that because our character is super detailed, with like high resolution texture and so on. So that would be a little bit silly. What we really need is to send the character the best possible, the best looking character with all the necessary detail and resolution on the one hand, which is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I transfer this. Okay. Yeah, I already have it though. So I don't know what is saying this. Let's see if can take a few minutes to trigger as well. So I'll let it just check. I'll try again. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so sorry for the wait, but as I've done the other day, I think it's quite interesting perhaps for you to get a sense. There you go. So now it's triggering. And it's going to take a few minutes for these to. Here you go. So that's window there is in fact coming from Unreal, which is taking over. Basically, Unreal got the message, right? And what's happening now? It's an automated transfer of the mesh, the texture, but not just that. It's a conversion towards the requirement of Unreal. So once again, it's not just about the assets, but it's really about trying to reassemble the asset on the other side according to what Unreal expect to receive and the way it deals with mesh and texture. So it's really brilliant because you'll see that all the materials will be already created for us. This is working quite well, I must say, but I've already noticed that at times, especially stuff like transparency, so meaning that the eyes, for instance, needs some tweaking as well. Okay, so it does the heavy lifting. It probably does, I don't know, say 75% to 90% of the whole transfer, and for the rest, you would have probably to come up with sort of more tailored solution. So here is a character in the middle of the level of the scene there. The shading are being compiled right now. So Unreal has received all the information, but is now going to compile, because obviously we're dealing with a real-time rendering. So the arms have been now shaded. The texture is there, and it's still work in progress. When I've done it earlier in the morning, there was one. Basically, she's standing also now. I have a rectangular light source, which I could actually switch off because she's literally standing in the source itself. So here you go. Coming through, and the glorious makeup. So the hair also would need, that's what I meant. So for instance, here the hair are very, very translucent. So we need to go back to adapt a little bit that translucency. Translucency in Unreal, I think, needs to evolve. They need to make progress there, because I don't find it's being always, well managed. So she, poor girl, she looks a little bit now not quite herself. And also the shading there in the hair could be also improved. So you have access to absolutely all the material, and it's very detailed. You have 22 different materials. So you have indeed the transparency for the eyes. You could still change potentially the skin color, the eyes, that sort of stuff. You kind of have to go back also to tweaking a lot of the overall look, but that's more a rendering question rather than anything else. So in other words, well, Unreal is a different engine. Okay, so you would not expect necessarily the way it deals with materials the same way. Okay, so if you go to some of the parameters, so here we have, well, roughness, metallic, all that sort of things. It's stuff that you probably would want to go back to. In fact, you can go to, so here she is. You can go to the material, which I don't have there. So I have the mesh over here. Now, so I'll show you that maybe another day, if there is another day. Let's conclude the animation thing, because I could easily get absorbed in this as well, because it's likewise really endless. So for the animation, I very briefly showed you that the other day. You need sequence, so you need to create that sequence in Unreal. It's in the animation category. You create that level sequence, and this materializes in that tab there. So it's a timeline, really. Here we kind of need two things. We need the asset itself. So here is the character, but there is no animation quite yet. So the next thing now will be to bring, and as I said, I could have brought that in one go, but in a real working sort of situation, you would not want to re-import the asset every single time, the mesh all the time. So that's also something I wanted to share with you, because you only need to import the anim itself. I have the animation there. Okay, so we can save a little bit of time. I'm just going to bring that in. In fact, I've started a new asset, so I'm probably going to have to export that animation. So it's basically just an FBX. You have also preset for Unreal, so we can really go to many different platforms: Maya, 3ds Max, Unity, Motion Builder, Blender, and so on. So you can define also the frame rate, which can be changed at a later time. So let's rename this, because I think the animation I've prepared was for another character altogether. So let's export this. So this is exclusively the animation on its own, without the mesh. So I'm going to cancel this one, because in the end, I'm going to import the one I've just created at the minute. So that's anim 2. Likewise, this is going to take a few seconds, minutes, before Unreal realized that, oh, hang on a minute. Are you asking me to do something? Yes, import the animation. So Unreal awake to the fact, awaken to that reality of his. There you go. So I don't want to import the mesh. That was the whole point. I want actually to use an existing one, which is in the scene, because the character is already in the scene. So that's how you can import the animation alone on its own without having to forever re-import things. One more things I need to do. Yeah, okay, that's the one there, and import. That should be fairly quick-ish. Right. So now this is the animation. It looks again that I've imported the mesh. I haven't, because actually it uses the existing mesh to represent. So to represent the animation. I don't know why it's starting with the shader again. Back to the sequencer. I have my character, and I'm going to drag and drop the animation now in the sequencer right there. Okay, so one more little tweak there. At the minute the animation used the animation blueprint, I wanted to use my custom animation. And here you go. So she went a little bit further away, as we know. Let me fly back straight in. There we go. And playback. So naturally, the beauty of virtual production is that you can the glitch there is simply because I'm making change of my 3D mouse at the same time. I'm going to increase the frame range. I forgot what was our frame range, 1080, 1800, sorry. So I'm simply going to increase my frame range 1800. So the natural and usual in and out point. Actually, the animation is slightly smaller than that. Here we go. I still have my camera because I find that the look of the default look of the viewer is a little bit, I don't know, it's a bit like wide angle when it comes to character. It's not really looking really nice. So here we are with my camera. I can increase the focal length, focus. There we go. And then playback. Oops. I think she needs a haircut. There's something with the hair right now. They are a bit translucent. Okay, so that was that. She again defaulted to something I have to look into, because the animation default to, yeah. So basically, I could add indeed a keyframe to force it to be to use the custom mode. So at the minute, every single time it goes back to 0, so the actual 0, it resets itself. So either I can add a keyframe for that parameter to force basically the parameter to not change. See, it went back. So, and instead read the animation from the timeline. So that's a detail, but there we go. So inside Unreal, I mentioned that briefly, but that's a complete different topic, which I'm only beginning to explore. You have physics, simulation. So here, obviously, it's not real. It's part of the animation, but as I really briefly show you through the starter pack, there are things where falling, so you can have collisions, you can have that sort of things as well can be controlled, like the physics for the clothes, for the hair, so that they really move as you would expect them to move. So you see, these are the issue that I mentioned, where the sort of transparency issue sometimes in some texture that you would need to fix. So details, but that can be fixed, definitely 100%, but you can tell that everything is out of focus except the hair. So a few things that could be automated, but at the moment it's not for some reason. I just wanted to, one last thing to kind of try to just get quite close to the detail. So I'm going to make a quick change as well, naturally, to my focus over there, but also to the camera, because at the moment the camera is kind of literally bump into the mesh. I'll try if I can change that. There are a few parameters which are only accessible through that sort of command line, which I hate because again it makes me feel that I know what I'm doing, which obviously I don't. So I set the near clip plane, and again I don't really like the I'm sure that some of you may be in coding and stuff. I really want to avoid that. Because it's a distraction, and again, it's a type of knowledge, which I can recreate or copy paste line of comment that I've been told can be useful, but oops. I think character, I don't know where I am now. I'm just going to step out of my camera because I lost somewhat reference. But basically that's that. That's the thing I wanted to share with you for the last few minutes. If I can manage to get those details again. So it's not perfect because there's a tessellation. So you see that the mesh is sort of very sharp, but this again would need to be triggered from within the mesh and the textures and materials. So just going to step back into my camera. Yeah, I've applied also like crazy. See, like lens distortion like mad. There we go. Never flattering, never really flattering your wide angle. Never a good look. So that's what I was after, really trying to show you those details, sort of detail available. There we go. We have our character, animated character, inside Unreal. Let's go a bit more light. You can track the focus as well. At the moment, I'm fully manual on the focus. So I have to do kind of everything together. But it's a nice, it's a very functional round trip. It's a very functional workflow, which keeps improving, indeed. So in parallel to that, you have those meta-human, sort of brand new things from Epic. The integration seems obviously even more sort of facilitated. From what I understand, you already have sort of immediately working the dynamic, the physics for the hair and that sort of things, which is obviously really lovely to have at once. Having said that, it doesn't look like you have as many blend shape and sliders as character creator offer. Okay, so at this point in time, I don't know what the future will be made of on that ground, but clearly MetaHuman are likely to set the tone to define really again a sort of benchmark, as I said the other day. And I suspect since Reillusion got a mega grant from Epic, that they will remain really doing what they do, but with even more direct integration. So effectively use the profile rigging skeleton of the metahuman, but make that sort of even more customizable through that process. But at this point in time, this is really the easiest way for me to create believable character. She actually looked much more real and believable inside iClone. So you can tell it's really the same asset, but it turns out that in that case, in Unreal, she doesn't look as good, namely because of all those shader that needs to be updated. Sorry, just went off a little bit as well. So it's really exclusively a matter of the materials to be somewhat updated so that they look better in Unreal. iClone being actually a renderer in its own right, they use iRay, so you can actually create complete scenes in from iClone as well. So yeah, at the moment, that's kind of the state of affairs. As you know, the future, well, we can't really predict, but we have some very strong clue. The MetaHuman, Unreal 5, probably on the horizon of 2022. Um, yeah, I mean that's when it comes to characters, I would say. Of course, you can model from scratch, go in ZBrush and do the hardcore 3D rigging. If only I knew, but I don't, so that's why I'm not doing it. That's the easy pathway.
And Clem, may I ask a question? If you have
Sure.
to facilitate completely a studio for yourself,
hmm
what budget do you need in order to combine all this technology and to be able to produce?
The one you currently see on screen, again, as I said, the Reillusion iClone at the moment is the most expensive because platform, because to its full extent it would be somewhat 5,000. Unreal is free, as you know, until you start to make your first million. Um, Xsense, they have updated their price range for indie. So indie, same thing. The threshold is basically the amount of money you make annually. But we're talking somewhere between, I think, 5,000 to 11,000. Um, there is the face rig. So the face rig is at the moment most people use iPhone, but there are some more um, evolved, sophisticated rig, which are much more pricey. Again, we're talking like around between 5 to 10,000. So at the minute, what you see there is, I would say quickly five. Yeah, we're already kind of around 15,000 across the stuff that you've seen this afternoon on your screen. I haven't mentioned the gloves, but yeah, that's about that. So a mix, plus I'm paying for the subscription of Substance, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean it does add up. Having said that, if you compare with the cost of making a film, a live action film, which again, as you know, is where I come from, and eventually my goal is to make film exclusively in virtual production. Well, it's still a fraction of what you would pay for the equipment. The equipment that I have in my storage unit, we're talking about 75,000 pounds. You know, before you start doing anything, and that is just for filming. So it does not even give you the sort of final pixels and and even that price in terms of uh, filming equipment is not representative of say the top stuff that you could get in filmmaking. Like I have very good lenses. I used to have a red camera, and I eventually sold it when I turned to virtual production. But the red camera on its own is 20,000 pounds. So I would say you're very quickly in the 100,000 pounds for filming film equipment. So even if the virtual production sounds somewhat expensive because it add up a little bit, it's actually much cheaper than anything live action, real world kind of thing. Um, yeah, it's I would say from the top of my head right now, I would say probably it's 10 times cheaper.
Mhm.
Just just thinking now, going through the figures that I told you, it's potentially 10 yeah, a fraction 10 times cheaper than virtual production than um, r- live action equipment. Somewhere that's my experience. Again, I suppose any scenarios and configuration and combination is possible, but
And have you started working on this project of yours that you had in mind? Um,
yes, I have for a long time. I've been working on a project of a series, episodic narrative, and this is not going to happen straight away because this is really, well, originally for live action. So I'm going to have to wait and be patient for this virtual production to become as photorealistic as live action. So we're talking maybe, yeah, 5 years. Well, be it, if it's the price of patience is the price, that's okay. So in the meantime, I set myself a few other projects which are more suited to the current development in terms of technology. So we are all independent filmmakers willing to switch over to virtual production. We are clear about the fact that this is not fully ready. So in the meantime, we can hone our skills, we can train, and this is exactly what I'm doing now. I'm going to start a project. So I've been kind of, as I said the other day, I spent the last year trying to convince myself to make that shift, that move. Now I'm convinced, and so I'm starting production as a mean of, well, as a mean of obviously being creative, of course, because that's the whole point, but also as a mean of learning with purpose. So instead of just going through, endless tutorials, just trying to get my head around the technology, now it's going to be driven by an actual project. So very, very short series, film between 30 seconds to 1 minute format, with the same character, but no dialogue, because that's the main problem at the moment, at this point in time. If you're into fashion shoots, stills, you can potentially use digital human convincingly, but as soon as you need to animate them, and more specifically dialogue, so face capture, that's when it unravels at the moment. So until this is fixed, I can't really go to my original project of series. So in the meantime, I'm working to that much more modest project, but really tailored for the current potential and limitation of the technology. So kind of writing a little bit, or reverse engineering, if you wish, the narrative process, where, okay, what can I do now? All right, so I'm going to do a project that is just made for that.
yeah, it does make sense. And do we have access to iClone at Escape, or is it not available?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure, and you know why? Because I'm not sure. The reason why I'm not sure is because first and foremost at Escape I'm teaching compositing, and now I'm a sort of I'm increasingly becoming a hybrid thing. Because I'm not an animator, I'm not a 3D guy. I'm probably moving slightly away from compositing. So it's a question for Michael Davis, I suppose, because at Escape I never taught animation. I'm not an animator, right? So I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, well, this is interesting how all these different disciplines converge at one point in the previs, tech-viz, post-viz, and
Yes,
so
indeed, and including the discipline like my mind in the previous life of cinematography and being a camera operator, because at the end of the day, you need to film these characters and make the choice of a camera angle and a focal length and the orientation of the light and that sort of stuff. So the scope is far beyond the computer,
yeah.
I think. So that's why it's so fascinating as well. So this is that, guys. I don't know if you have questions.
Yes, if you want to shoot any questions, guys, please feel free. I've moved our next session with 15 minutes later, so we can jump on the next session after this. But please feel free to use the moment to ask any questions.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Clement. Thank you for that. That's very interesting. What
Pleasure.
what sort of computing power we're talking about in order to handle these bits of software?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't even know what I have in my computer as such right now. It's the only thing I have that tells enough about how not a computer person I am. Um, the the thing I know is my graphic card, which is NVIDIA RTX 8000, if that rings a bell.
Mm.
So that's the one I have right there. And I think this is quite crucial to this sort of platform. In my view, particularly when it comes to Unreal, because you have, again, it massively helps this sort of real-time rendering. Anything to do with RAM, processor, and stuff, I'm going to confess the configuration has been devised by a friend of mine. Then I got in touch with HP, so Hewlett Packard, who did the setup for me, and that was that.
Okay.
So because I have like really zero interest, absolutely no interest in for me it's the and I'm not saying it's right. I don't know if you can derive and conclude some of the stuff with that when I'm showing there. I think I should develop a sort of better understanding of what's in my machine. Um, but at the same time, for me, it's always been a little bit that approach. Like when at the time I was working with camera, I can tell you about. I can tell you, all I know all the parameters, the interaction between the sensor, the lenses, and all that sort of stuff. Um, where I lost interest is kind of when it comes to the processing, to the compression, to all these sort of things. And um, in Unreal, for instance, I've done a lot of tests also in terms of rendering with regard to sort of trial and errors and parameters. So I can be a bit technical, but it is so dry, so dry. So sorry, I'm waffling a bit there, but back to the computer you need. I think it's obviously down to graphic cards, and for me that was been made quite clear at the time of the configuration, where they were like it you have to have a lot of RAM and you have to have really strong graphic cards because it's what matters most,
Cool. Thank you.
obviously. That sounds not really scientific and technical, I know. Just for fun, check this out, guys. Some of the shaders like this don't deal so well with shadows. So these are the tweaks I mentioned. So that's the illustration, the exact illustration of what I said. To a great extent, it's plug and play. All those things are really plug and play. And then all of a sudden, on a small detail, and again you can fix that, right? But you need to, you need to go back to the material, you need to do those sort of changes and things like that. So clearly at the moment, um, what you see is basically the clothes are not opaque, they are not casting shadows. And if you see the gap, the hole in the body there, is because the non-visible geometries have been deprecated. So basically, again, to save time, the geometry for the body, everything which is hidden, so has been discarded. So that's why you end up with no shadow for the clothes and a big hole in the middle. So once again, you can fix that, but that's kind of quite again representative of yeah, that sort of plug and play ish to some extent. And then you have to come up with more manual approach. That's quite funny. Hello, lady.
Can I ask another question, please?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just fiddling about with my. I'll sort that out later. So you kind of went through, I think, 3 to 4 different pieces of software. One, are you taking on the task of learning bits of the job, or do you need to know all 4 bits of software in order for you to kind of do your role, so to speak? Or are you
Yeah,
trying to do multiple roles in one because it's, I don't know, you're doing this out of love and leisure?
yes. Well, I think as a filmmaker, you are that jack of all trade, and you have to be, in the context of, because that's the opportunity offered by virtual production. So I think it would be a mistake not to try to embrace the different facets. But as I said, I suppose the more you broaden your the sort of try to play the one-man band kind of things, it's clear that you can't at the same time be in depth. So there's a bit of a choice there. Either you can specialize, or use the expertise of people who are, very good at modeling or animation. And I think occasionally for filmmakers, it's something which is very welcome. Of course, you can maybe ask a friend, or hire someone for a very specific thing, like stuff like simulation. If I ever need something to do with water and fluids and people working in Houdini, I have, you know, no will and no time to to throw myself into that sort of thing. So I suppose, it's an interesting question, because I think this virtual production, alongside also, now that we have the knowledge, thanks or due to the pandemic, that we can work from home, I feel that the workflow, the very rigid workflow that we knew so far in the VFX and film industry, will become much more fluid. So where I would very much encourage people to have this sort of wide knowledge, but not necessarily in depth, because you simply can't. Software like Unreal are so complex; it's just a maze. Um, I don't. I mean, one of my friends also working in the game industry said, you even, game artists don't. We tend to specialize within Unreal, because we can't really embrace everything. So there's always this sort of dichotomy between um, a sort of vertical knowledge or horizontal knowledge. You know what I mean? Sort of wide but superficial, or specialized and but very narrow but extremely specialized. For filmmakers, I think we have to be on the broad, horizontal, wide type of knowledge, and then occasionally um, ask someone for help. But yeah, that's the way I see it at the minute. So that's why I don't want to go into coding. I don't want there are things that I really refuse to indulge in, not even indulge in. But yeah, I'm not going to be into coding.
And
Okay, I've just said it in front of witness. If you ever see me coding, just make sure that you save me from this.
And lastly, I swear to God, how long has it taken you just to get to this level across the softwares, the pieces of software that you do, that you have shown us throughout these 3?
Well, it's the answer. I can give you like a very precise answer, and then you can compute all that by yourself. I got my computer on the 23rd of March last year, 2020. Okay, so it's like just a year and a month now. And I've been working since we were been locked down. I not like many, we didn't really have much opportunity to do a lot elsewhere. So I've been working pretty much every week, between 2 or 3 days on that for a year, because I have also other projects. And when I'm dedicating sort of 2 full days, but it's a choice as well. Some people have different circumstances and lives and families and kids and whatever, like so many different things. So, but I've been able to dedicate kind of say 2 full days every week. So maybe 100 days, 52 weeks, 2 days a week, roughly. I'm probably around 100 days since I started.
Cool. Thank you.
So it's pretty precise, this one, because I've been in a sort of routine forced by the pandemic, so that was pretty straightforward. I don't know. Does that sound a lot or not a lot? I have no idea. I have no clue.
No, I was trying to figure out because
Yeah.
you've crossed quite a few pieces of software, and it seems to me that you're doing very well. And I'm just, if I'm
Well,
gonna start, God, how am I gonna? It's hard enough trying to figure out one piece of software, but having to kind of cross between 3 or 4, and like you said, no, just
yeah.
enough to get you to the next stage.
Unreal,
Wow.
Unreal is obviously the start, before you even consider anything else, because it's free as well. Because again, these guys are a bit pricey, the Real Legion thing. Okay, I suppose you can have a alternative to that as well. Like if you look into DAZ, have you heard of DAZ, the DAZ library?
I worked with DAS before,
Yeah,
Clem, and I must admit it wasn't a pain. I worked for a normal poster, and
yeah,
they didn't have really all the necessary tools, but they wanted to produce photorealistic
yeah.
quick videos for their marketing, and they
You
asked
can.
me to fix
Yeah,
it,
sorry.
which was really impossible because everything was procedurally created, and it was no history of how it was created, and it
Hmm.
was really, really painful. So um, because people don't understand, sometimes
Hmm.
the managers in these companies probably are not always familiar with the process. They
Yeah,
were really upset because I couldn't fix that DAS people at the time. I guess DAS now working better. There was another one, Axis People, as well, if you
yeah.
work with them.
I don't know.
But there is a fine line between realism
Yeah.
and this uncanny valley is really hard to break.
I think the DAS may have evolved a little bit, and also uh, I've started to use that a bit in conjunction with other stuff. So here, it's just a screen capture of DAS, um, where they clearly realized that they were better off to work alongside other software. So you have now bridges with Unreal, so you don't necessarily need the iClone. And DAS, the model, the sort of business model is completely different because their engine is free as well. So it's a bit like a Blender kind of things,
Mhm.
but the where they make a lot of money, so that's why it really differs from Blender, is that DAS is actually charging for everything that you would import. So you want a character, you have to pay for it. You want a bit of clothing, you have to pay for it. You want, so they make money with their library, not with the software. So on, it's not a bad idea because therefore you're not paying for what you don't need. So that's another logic. And now it integrates with Unreal. So I didn't choose today because again there's a lot, 1 hour, but to go through the DAS round trip, but I've done that a few times where you can actually go DAS to Unreal. You can even go DAS to iClone, character creator, and Unreal. So it works a little bit in many ways. I think there is a DAS substance painter as well. I wanted to share that with you guys as well. I'm using Trello, and I'm not a natural good learner. I've never been. I've never been really successful at school, I must confess. So I'm taking a huge amount of notes and screen capture. And here, for instance, even on the import, stuff like super simple stuff that suppose normal people with a normal brain, not like myself, would remember, I have to do that. So screen capture, and then just a few notes directly on the screen capture. Um, and these, because also these things change all the time. Really, with Unreal, brace yourself for a platform, as I said the first session, which is a work in progress itself. I don't know a software which is more work in progress than Unreal. So you, you have to be ready for that, and you have to kind of adopt that mindset. It's a mindset, I think. Unreal, you're just like, well, oh well, okay, well, what I learned today might be not true tomorrow, and probably not in 2022 with Unreal 5. So the concept, the fundamentals remain the same, but the very small details, the checkbox, the things like that, are I'll be honest, I don't have the mind, the memory to remember that, so I take a huge amount of notes, like this one. And this is, for instance, the illustration of, well, the stuff the stuff that you've seen there. Some of those things, like suddenly the shaders do not come across properly. So I would sometimes spend a day trying to find how that works, by which I mean scoring the internet, and we have the internet with people, bright, smart people who already bumped into the same problem before. And it ranged from forums to videos. And often I find it's the right answer sometimes is across multiple videos from different people. So you end up, through those 100 days, I suppose, um, of training this past year, quite a few has been spent, like sometimes where you feel you wasted your time because you spend the entire day trying to fix a problem, you didn't find it, and then eventually the answer comes later. So here's the illustration of that. You bring a character inside Unreal, the shader don't probably materialize. So the problem I had there is that um, some elements, such as the lashes, were casting opaque shadow. So basically, that was the shadow of the lashes. You're like, well, that doesn't do that in the real world. I checked with my girlfriend. That doesn't work like that. Okay, so you have to find the right box that you have to uncheck or check. And that's mad. That's mad because it's that one single tiny little box lost in an ocean of parameters. And that solved the problem. But thankfully, the answers are out there most of the time. So you're not completely lost. Best advice, you have to throw yourself in that stuff with a purpose. That's my best and last advice, I would say, because indeed it's so vast that to embrace the change, you really have to be driven by a pretty strong purpose. I'm not going to lie; it can be a bit disheartening at times. We're like, oh wow, okay, so it's huge, but it's also the benefit of that. It's you're not on your own. There are a lot of people, and yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting.